This episode is brought to you by Global X. Since 2008, Global X ETFs has been committed to empowering investors with unexplored, intelligent solutions. Global X specializes in exchange-traded funds that offer exposure to the artificial intelligence ecosystem, including themes like data centers, robotics, semiconductors, and cloud computing. To learn more about Global X's entire suite of ETFs, from covered calls, fixed income, emerging markets, and more, visit globalxetfs.com.
This episode is brought to you by Nerds Gummy Clusters, the sweet treat that always elevates the vibe. With a sweet gummy surrounded with tangy, crunchy nerds, every bite of Nerds Gummy Clusters brings you a whole new world of flavor. Whether it's game night, on the way to a concert, or kicking back with your crew, unleash your senses with Nerds Gummy Clusters.
Going through the journey of building those companies and then having those things not really work out, there's a lot of sweat and energy and stress that goes into those things. And then as I watched my kids get older, just thinking about like, hey, how do I start to control my own destiny and control my own time and potentially even have something that I can, pass down or work alongside them in the future? I just started to look for other opportunities. And then I also kind of stumbled into franchises because as I was looking for mom and pop like businesses that were up for sale, I think 7 out of 10 that I inquired about ended up actually being franchises.
Yeah. Hello, everyone, and thanks for tuning in to the latest edition of FranCoach's Franchising 101 podcast. My name is Tim Parmeter. I am the founder and CEO of FranCoach and your podcast host. Today, we get my favorite segments again, In Their Words, where we are going to have a former client of FranCoach come on, talk about their experience, how this journey went, give us all their backstory, what franchise that they now own. It's kind of some tips and tricks along the way to help you out. So we got this person coming on to join us here in a couple minutes. First, as always, a quick reminder of who we are. FranCoach is a national search firm dedicated to working with individuals like yourself interested in owning a franchise. We're partnered with over 600 of the top franchisors in the country, spanning over 70 industries. Number one goal is to help properly educate you on franchise ownership to determine if this is the path for you. And if so, what's the best franchise out there for you to own? As you're going to hear today, it's rarely the thing you think it is at the beginning. Never ever any fee for our service either. Kind of like recruiters in the corporate world. We're compensated on the back end by the franchisors. So this is all about taking a little time to educate you to figure out if this is the path. That's us. Now let's get to our guest. All right. We are back now with our guest. And again, always love the In Their Words episodes where we get our former clients on, all giddy about what the hell we just suckered them into with being a franchise owner. And joining us today from lovely Austin, Texas is Zach McNelis. Zach, thanks for joining us.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me, Tim. I appreciate it.
We are excited to chat with you, man. Always, I think there are times where in my, if I'm allowed to be selfish for a moment, I work with smart, successful people all day long. And then there are some I'm like, dang, like I'm kind of sad when they become a franchise owner because then I don't have those weekly conversations with them. And so it's been a while since we chatted, man, and I always enjoyed chatting with you and helping you through this process. And so thanks for joining us today. So
yeah, absolutely. And thanks for the journey. Like it's been a great process. I've learned a ton and I appreciate your time and energy that you put into this.
No, it's my pleasure. And you came to us originally because you listened to this amazing podcast. I think it's called Franchising 101. We want to get into your journey in the franchise side, but this is everything we do in this industry is about people and always like hearing their stories. So give us a little bit of the background on Zach, kind of, pre-franchise. What's the scoop there?
Yeah, for sure. So as you mentioned, I live in Austin, Texas with my wife and 5 kids. We've been here for about 10 years, originally from Virginia. I'm 25 years in technology. So I started super early in my career, had the benefit of starting at, Microsoft, and I was there for, 12, 13 years, and then moved into smaller stage startups. And I've been there, kind of since, bouncing around, different stages of companies. It had the benefit of, building some from the ground up and enjoying that journey. And then also, building teams within some more mature companies. But it's been kind of an interesting journey here in the technology world. But when I'm not doing that, I'm, spending time with my kids, enjoying the outdoors and enjoying the sunshine here in Texas.
Yeah. And every time this comes up and you said 5 kids and I kind of cringed a little bit. I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm so like, my one that I have halftime that's for reasons that defy logic, not in school today. Like I don't know how you do that. And, but super cool with that. And so, but somewhere in this, you were super successful, and I've been super successful working for other people, big ones that we've maybe heard of, like Microsoft, I think you said. I think we've heard of that one. And then all these other ones that maybe we haven't. But what kind of got you thinking, hey, maybe it's time to look at doing something else and doing something for yourself?
Yeah. So I think it started probably in the last couple of years. So I've worked for a couple of early stage tech startups. And if you follow the tech world, tech's not what it used to be. But not only building companies, being employee number 4 or 5 or, the first 10, and going through the journey of building those companies and then having those things not really work out. There's a lot of sweat and energy and stress that goes into those things. And then as watch my kids get older, just thinking about like, hey, how do I start to control my own destiny and control my own time and potentially even have something that I can, pass down or work alongside them in the future? I just started to look for other opportunities. And I originally started looking, at, more mom and pop businesses that I could buy, and realized that, that was not something I was probably going to be able to pull off and carry a corporate job at the same time. And there's a lot more risk associated with it. And then I also kind of stumbled into franchises because as I was looking for mom and pop like businesses that were up for sale, I think 7 out of 10 that I inquired about ended up actually being franchises. Yeah. So, that's kind of what led me to the franchising world. And then obviously I connected with you and, kind of poured gas on the fire, for lack of a better phrase.
And by the time we had connected, you had looked at some other things. So you had kind of been definitely in this mindset. But we get going and we have, a couple different things that we are looking at right off the bat. Right. And you had kind of some preconceived notions of even some things coming in. Talk about how kind of you evolve from, okay, I think it might be a franchise, to like some of the things maybe you learned along the way that you didn't know a year ago or even 6 months ago about this industry.
Yeah. One, I would say probably the big one was like, how do I even pull this off? Right. So like, obviously I'm a sole breadwinner of a family of 7. I've got my oldest is 18, getting ready to go to college for the first time. It's like, all right, like, can I even afford to do this? And I think that was one of the first things I learned was, how to leverage like 401k through rollovers and things like that. That's not penalized. So I think when I first learned about that through the Rob's process, which I know you and I talked about early on too, is like, that was kind of like an eye opener. Like, oh, like I do potentially have, an avenue to actually do this. So that was probably the first thing. So it was like, okay, like the win was not taken out of my sails in the like, hey, you just can't afford to do this. And I think the rest of it was just, really looking and understanding how franchises work. Cause when I first started thinking about franchises, I was thinking, the McDonald's of the world. Right. And like, that was not something that I really wanted that wasn't the journey I wanted to go on. So then like, I learned very quickly that a lot of the brands that I pass on the road as I'm driving or I'm, seeing brick and mortar are franchises and you would have never even thought about it. Yeah. So I think like just knowing that the whole world or how much of that franchising was actually out in the world and like how much you use every day and don't even realize it. And then the business model behind it. I think those are probably the first 3 things that I realized more than anything else.
Yeah, no. And it's funny you mentioned like the pass by thing and now that you're, in the secret, like underground world of franchising, you'll start seeing it all the time. My wife and I will do that. We'll drive into some strip plaza and I'm like, ooh, franchise heaven right here. No, like, it's just, it is, we don't realize it because as consumers, for the most part, we don't care. Like, right. I need X. Can you do it? Right. Yes, no, whatever. So, and so we go through and we start vetting some franchises, and you looked at a couple others, varying degrees of, success. Right. And so we go through and you kind of start to narrow in on a little bit. And in fact, before I ask this question, let's back up. Give us the big reveal of what is the franchise you are now the proud owner of is what?
So I went with Pirtek. So okay. I have, and then I'm going to be Pirtek Lockhart to have the official name, which is in Lockhart, Texas, which is a little bit south of Austin. It's the, they'll argue that they're the barbecue capital of the United States. But that's where I landed. And like, I'm super excited and we're trucking along pretty quickly.
Yeah. But give us this, okay, but you can't just say Pirtek. That ain't McDonald's, dude. What is?
Yeah. So Pirtek is. Yeah,
give us the elevator pitch.
Yeah, so Pirtek does industrial and hydraulic hose repair. It's 24/7 business. We show up on site and fix things where they are. And they have two business models. So they have a tier 1 and a tier 2, where tier 2 is 100% mobile. In tier 1, there's actually a supply service center where, if someone already has a mechanic and they know how to take the hoses off, or they have that crew, they just need someone to like create the hose for them so they can fix it. We'll have a supply center where they can come and pick that up and hang out with us in the air conditioning while we do it, since it's typically hot here in Texas and they get out of the sun a little bit.
Excellent. So super unsexy, right?
Correct.
And I'm quite sure, even though it's unsexy, all throughout your life, even as a little child, you're like, mommy, daddy, someday I want to own a business that does hydraulic hoses. Not really something on your radar. Like what were some of the things that triggered for you about Pirtek that was the right match for you?
So some of it is location. Like obviously I live in an area that's growing pretty rapidly. Like Austin and San Antonio are kind of sandwiched right in the middle of the territory I was looking at. And those two cities are growing, super heavily. So there's going to be all kinds of expansion. I have some pretty large, manufacturers in this territory as well. I won't mention names, but some of them are, pretty large electrical car companies and things of that nature. So yeah. I looked at it and was like, oh, this is viable. This is something that I can do for a long time. Amazon's not going to replace it. Obviously being a tech guy, technology is not going to replace it. So I'm always going to have, work to be done more than anything else. I think that was first. Second, like I grew up loving working on trucks and I still do. So even though I don't have a profession in, turning wrenches or things like that, it was one of those that if I had to go do this, I'm not going to hate it. Like I would definitely go work on, a backhoe and swap out hoses as I needed to. I would love to do that. So, I looked at it from the standpoint of like, hey, if everyone just was, walked out the door tomorrow and you were left, carrying the bag by yourself, could you do it? And would you hate doing it? So that was kind of number 2 for me. So
yeah.
At LinkedIn, we know hiring is a big deal for your small business. Sometimes it can feel a little, overwhelming. LinkedIn uses data that you can't find anywhere else to give you the best candidates, all so you can feel confident you're hiring the best person for the job. And even a little hiring bliss. See why 86% of small businesses who post a job on LinkedIn get a qualified candidate within a day. Post a job for free at linkedin.com/achieve. LinkedIn, your next great hire is here.
You know what's smart? Enjoying a fresh gourmet meal at home that you didn't have to cook. Meet Factor, your loophole in the laws of mealtime. Chef-crafted meals delivered with a tap, ready in just 2 minutes. You know what's even smarter? Treating yourself without cheating your goals. Factor is dietitian approved, chef prepared, and you plated. Pretty smart, huh? Refresh your routine and eat smart with Factor. Learn more at factormeals.com.
Hey everyone, I wanted to take a quick break from our podcast to tell you about our amazing friends at Entrepreneur. If you're looking to become a franchisee or simply learn more about business ownership, and guys, let's be honest, you're listening to the Franchising 101 podcast, so we know you have some interest in this. And I really encourage you to go to entrepreneur.com to check out all of their great content and resources. Seriously, Entrepreneur has everything, all the way from a bookstore to the best podcasts, webinars, and videos, plus information on upcoming events and the latest articles that seriously, they cover all aspects of franchising and business ownership. If you're having trouble deciding which franchise is right for you, start with Entrepreneur's renowned Franchise 500 ranking, which highlights the best franchises of 2022. For 45 years and counting now, Entrepreneur has been and continues to be the most widely recognized and respected authority in the franchise market. Digital and print subscriptions are available, so you never miss out on anything. So seriously, what are you waiting for? Go to entrepreneur.com right now and learn more. One of the things too that I think most people, and even me too, when we first started really working with Pirtek, I'm like, wait, industrial hydraulic hoses, like, I don't get it. What is it? Like, where are these things? And then you start realizing they are everywhere.
Everywhere.
But give us a couple examples of where we might see these or who some of your customers might be.
Absolutely. Garbage trucks. Like I was pulling out of the driveway this morning, taking my son to school, and the garbage truck was parked behind me. And, you know, if like anything on a garbage truck that has to do with actually compacting the trash or getting the trash into the truck requires hydraulics. I mean, technically every car on the road, or the majority of the cars on the road have hydraulic hoses. That's what makes your brakes work. Even though automotive in the car world is not an ideal customer, like, you know, I think every car you see probably has an hydraulic hose of some type. But backhoes working on the road, dump trucks, fire trucks, any type of manufacturers. So I mentioned automotive a little while ago. If you think about like stamping car parts or the robots or the mechanics that are moving those things around the warehouse, those typically take hydraulics, forklifts, etc.
Yeah. And one of the things that was always described to me was like any yellow vehicle, right? And I'm like,
Yes.
you mean like a Volkswagen? Like no, like the work ones, they're everywhere. And my wife and I were at a conference last fall, and we got to meet the CEO of Pirtek, Kim. Oh my gosh, I just drew a blank on our last name, but we'll add that in, Kim, and then we'll voice over that in later. Super fantastic, brilliant lady, but she had mentioned like massage tables. It kind of came up, and funny enough, we were driving down the street not too long ago, and we parked at a stoplight and looked over, and there was a pickup truck that had a broken like massage table in it. And I'm like, man, they need Pirtek, right? And it's just, you kind of start, I'm sure you're doing this already. You're like, that's a potential customer. Got to talk to them because it's just all over right in front of our face.
Yes, you're exactly right. It's amazing. It's like you see something and the light bulb goes off, and then, like you said, you start to see more things, and you're like, oh, like there really is hoses everywhere.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was another reason. It was one of those that, like, you know, is this something that I feel like is going to be in demand, that it's actually, you know, viable long term, and something that I could grow and expand.
Yeah. I think it's kind of like getting a new car, and you're like, oh, I'm the first one that's got this car. And then you like drive around the corner and you're like, oh man, then you see like 2 or 3 more of them. Now you're kind of seeing that in the good standpoint. So, I want to talk a little bit about the kind of some behind the scenes things, because you had looked at, I won't name names, but you had looked at a couple other brands and maybe didn't have the best feel for the people, the culture, and the support. Going into this, was that something you knew was going to be like, could actually be kind of a deal breaker or a deal maker for you, just the people behind a brand?
I should have. I wouldn't say that was like the first thing on my radar, right? Like,
Right.
I didn't really think about it from the support aspect and things like that. I think that was definitely one of the things I learned, is that not all franchises are created equal. And that the support you get and how invested the franchisor is in your success.
Yeah.
I mean, it makes sense, right? Because you're going to have, you know, fees that go back to them. So the more revenue you make, ideally, the more income and revenue they make. But like, you'd be surprised at some of the things I learned along the way. And like, some are not created equal. For me, it was like, hey, I come from the tech world where it's all about moving fast.
Yeah.
Right. And even looking at like time to opening. And like, it's one thing to have a timeline to say, hey, you have to be opened within 6 months. But when you take a step back and you're like, okay, well, how many people have signed in the last 6 months, and how many of those people are actually hitting those targets?
Right.
And that was super eye opening too, because there was, you know, a lot of franchises being sold with certain franchisors, but there weren't a lot being opened.
Yeah.
And that was kind of like a red flag for me. So, yeah.
Yes. One in particular, who we won't say who they were, that you had looked at, right? So, and again, and even in like, I'm sure there are people in that brand that are being successful, and there's not typically like there's no best franchise. There's rarely a worst franchise. It's so individualized for each person. But as you got deeper into it with Pirtek, what were some of the things that you learned or encountered that helped you have the comfort that you were in the right place?
There was a couple things. One, with a couple of brands I looked at, there were definitely defined territories for the actual specific franchisee. However, you still feel like you're kind of competing not only against all the other brands in the market, but you're still kind of competing with your neighbor that's within the same family. And at first I just thought like, oh, that's just the way it is. Like, that's just kind of the way the world operates. And the one thing I found about Pirtek is, yes, there's competition, but it's actually a tight community. Like the other owners, they really want everyone within the company to be successful. They also like to help each other out. So it's like, hey, if you have too much business, instead of turning that business away and introducing them to another brand, like call me. I'll send one of my guys to go take care of that job for you. Or, hey, if you know you're going to be slammed and you can't do those things. And to me, that was huge because it's like, it's one thing to compete against your own people, so to speak. It's another thing to compete against the market. And when you team up together and you kind of go to market, now you have a brand that actually has recognition beyond just your territory. So you feel like you can kind of team up and conquer a market, so to speak. Like that was one big thing that appealed to me with Pirtek. And you see it all the way from the top down. So like just how they ran their owner meetings. So when you interview existing owners and how they did that was just fantastic. If I went back to John and was like, hey, I want to talk to more people, or hey, I'd love to have a one-on-one with this individual, like it was done. Like they would get me connected within the week, and like I would have this phone call. So it was just all around a great experience, and the camaraderie that I felt going into that was pretty solid.
Yeah. And there are some brands that, hey, we've got 100 owners, but probably only maybe 7 you should talk to.
Yeah.
And Pirtek's one, like talk to whoever the heck you want. Right. I mean, like within reason, because you're not going to talk to all 200 owners. Like nobody's got that much time, but there's nothing hidden, right? With that. And you mentioned that cause this comes up a lot in franchising, like, oh, I'm here, but I've got a neighbor, like I'm on South Austin, but there's somebody on North Austin. We're going to be fighting. And are there sometimes that happens? Yes, but it's not like this is how it's supposed to work, where, like even as it's going to lower your marketing costs, right? Maybe they've got a referral partner that also, he can't service because it's too far down, and now he can pass on, right? And you guys can really, like, again, dominate the entire market. So anybody that needs this knows, like, oh, this one's close to me. That's even better. And again, it really works that way as that true partnership.
Right. Yes. So that was a big one for me. So.
Yeah. And then, I always think it's fun going to meet the team day, and cause you had been to, I think two prior, right?
Correct.
And so now you go to wherever the heck that is in Florida, on the East Coast, right? And so you go down to their facility, meet their team. What was that experience like for you?
It was unique because I ended up being the only one there. So I got meet the team day all by myself. So that was, it was great because you kind of get some, one-on-one attention. You get the canned tour, but you can kind of derail things. And ask more questions and things of that nature. And it was fantastic. The facilities were awesome. I mean, there's a lot of logistics associated with Pirtek because, they do all the distribution of the supplies and the fittings and the hoses and things like that. So getting to see the warehouse, was incredible. Like not only getting to see the operation, but just seeing the, how clean it was. Yeah. Whether they do it because they know people are coming or that's just the way they do their business, it was fantastic. Right. Like it was super clean, organized. Everyone was friendly. It was just an all around great experience. And I happened to be there a week that, both Kim and John were gone. They were at a conference.
Oh, that's right.
So I didn't get to meet either one of them there, but the rest of the team was like super polished and like ready to have the right conversations and things like that. So you could tell that it wasn't, even though they weren't there, that it was a pretty well-oiled machine and like how they run their operations and things like that. So that was encouraging as well, that it was like, hey, even though these two people that are basically running things weren't there, that they still got the job done and they were able to answer all my questions and also follow up on things they might not know. So,
yeah. Well, and I think the fact that John wasn't there and it went on without a hitch, it's fine. John's insignificant anyway. And like, I will personally cut this part out and make sure I send that to him. But the fact that the CEO cannot be there and nobody misses a beat, is a pretty good indicator of what the leadership is like and the team is like. So
yes, because that wasn't the experience I had a couple other places. It was pretty, it was a stark difference at Pirtek than it was other places. So,
yeah. And again, it's all about that. Somebody else may go and like the other ones might have been the right fit. But, I appreciate with you throughout this, how open you were to the different options and looking at something else. And again, especially with something like Pirtek, like that's not somebody's dream business, typically. Right. And so, in fact, have you learned how to spell hydraulic without autocorrect? Right. So
probably not. I wish there was a change history for autocorrect, because I probably spell it wrong every time.
Yeah.
Yes.
If it makes you feel better, and it may just be my fingers, but I misspell the word franchise like often. I'm like 11 years now in this industry, so you think I'd be able to rattle that one off. So, and now we're in all the onboarding and the training, and we're getting close here. So when's our kind of like, we're looking at our open date for Pirtek?
Yeah. My open date is March 31st. So I think I signed on October 31st. And then obviously, right about 6 months later, we up and running. So I'm in the onboarding process, ordering all supplies, interviewing for, team members. Yeah, it's pretty busy right now. So,
is there anything else significant about March 31st that we should know?
Yeah, it's my birthday too. So I said, I won't be forgetting this birthday. As you get older, I don't know if you find this or not, you feel like you forget your birthday sometimes. So
I want to.
Yeah. I won't be forgetting this one. So it is March 31st. But yeah, we're super pumped.
So 29th birthday, and you're opening your new business. So
that's right.
That's fantastic. So, for all of our listeners in Austin, Texas that have hydraulic hose, that they need fixed, this will be the place to go. So, you've had a fantastic journey going through this. And even kind of, there are people out there listening that were literally in the same shoes you were 7-8 months ago, right? Of listen to this. Should I do it? Should I not? Now you've gone through the ups and downs of all of this. What might be some advice you would give somebody that's sitting out there listening right now?
For one, listen to your podcast. I think and the reason I say this, because before we even talked, I was driving, we were on a family vacation this summer, and I literally drove from, Sedona, Arizona to Colorado. And then a couple of days later, drove from Colorado back to Texas. And I think I listened to probably 40 of your episodes through there and got super educated.
Your poor family.
No, I had my headphones on. So they weren't, I would have never heard anything with my family in the car like that. But I think you lay everything out really well. So I think one is educating yourself. And then we were able to have a legit conversation from that point of view. I think one is just to be honest with yourself around what you want, but ultimately what you don't want. Cause there's a lot of shiny objects that sound great. And then you see it and you're like, oh, that, here's 3 reasons why that might be shiny, but it's not going to fit for me. I think that's number 2. And number 3 is, go to more than one meet the team day. I know it's an expense and you have to travel and take time away and all that, but what looks good on paper and all that, may not be the same when you get there. And I think it changed one to the next changed how I approached each of the conversations, either at meet the team day and then after meet the team day. So it was definitely enlightening. I would say it's almost like speed dating. It's definitely worth the time to do it. So
yeah, no. And I love your comment about it. I think this is the key point is it's a blank slate. What do you really want to do? What do you want this to be all about? And yes, we pull from backgrounds, right? That's natural, but it's not like trying to find that next job where I've always done this. So that's what I have to apply for. And yes, what you want to do, but also being aware enough to know, I don't want to do that. Right. Well, oh, my friend owns this and like loves it and they make $1 gazillion. Well, is that the right fit? Because if not, you'll never ever get there. So, no, I think that's spot on with that. And again, you were super open to going through and having those conversations and probably even, I think maybe even learning something about yourself as you kind of go through all of that. So
100%.
It's very cool. So March 31st, we have, it was Pirtek because you're South Boston, it's Lockhart.
Lockhart. Yes.
Cool. Well, excellent. Zach, thank you so much for taking time out of you got nothing else to do. You got a job. You're trying to launch a business. You got 5 kids. So thanks for spending a little time with us today. And we wish you the absolute best of luck. Let's put a pin in your birthday in 2026. Come back and tell us how year 1 has gone.
Sounds fantastic. And thank you for everything. I appreciate it. It's been great.
My pleasure. Thanks, Zach.
Yeah. Take care, Tim.
Thanks again to Zach McNelis joining us, brand spanking new owner of Pirtek, and appreciate him joining us, talking about his journey. Hope, as always, our podcast helps provide some insight into the amazing possibilities that can be found in the world of franchise ownership. And again, rarely are they the things you think they're going to be at the beginning, all part of that education process. You can find us FranCoach.net. Podcast site is franchising101podcast.net, but our team is all FranCoach. We're here for you. Reach out when you are ready to learn more to see if this is the path. We are more than happy to help you. Again, never any fee for our service. Be sure to like us and subscribe us here. Follow us on social media. Pick a platform. We are there. Even on TV, folks, slightly different name, but the Franchising 360 show, hosted by myself and my significantly better half, Danielle, every Friday night, 8 Eastern, 5 Pacific on Biz TV. Find us there as well. In the meantime, we will see you next week here on the Franchising 101 podcast. Thanks so much.